I want to start off by welcoming everyone to part one of a three-part segment where we will tackle culture and life in Japan, and certainly excited to spend some time with our two guests, both of whom are current Hanshin Tigers, outfielder Jerry Sands and reliever Jon Edwards. Thanks, fellas, for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I had the opportunity to spend a few minutes chatting with these guys for the first time, and I'm going to get a chance to know them a little bit alongside of you, and certainly have been impressed by their journeys that have brought them to the point of wearing the Tigers uniform. So with no further ado, let's just jump right into this. Both of you guys have had a lot of different experiences leading up to the 20 season, which we'll touch on a bit in a minute. But first off, I'm kind of curious as to how long Japan was on your radar, and would love to hear what the process was like for you and your family as you committed to playing for the Tigers. And Jerry, if you want to go first, that's cool.
Sure. Japan has been on my radar for quite a few years now. I believe in 2015 or 16, I had some little bit of scouting done on me. I actually talked to Josh Fields, a good buddy of mine, about he had some experience over here, so talked to him, just kind of trying to get the inside track. It didn't work out then, but the last year and a half, I actually got the opportunity to go over and play in Korea. So kind of the intro to Asian baseball and the way that they do things a little bit different than they do in the States kind of helped me. And then this off season obviously got a little more into the idea of coming to Japan, because they started having interest in me a little bit more. And then it just worked out that obviously I loved my time in Korea and I would have loved to go back, but taking into account the business side of it, and I'm not getting any younger, I just decided, my family and I decided that we wanted to come over here and try Japan out now that we had kind of hit a few more leagues on our way. But yeah, we've enjoyed our time so far.
Awesome. That's great, man. We're gonna touch a little bit more on that KBO and the life that you had in baseball there, and how it pertains and relates to Japan in segment two. So I look forward to digging into that in a little while. But Jon, what about you, man? How has your experiences, how long has it been on your radar, and what was that process like for you guys?
Yeah, so I think in 2014 or maybe 2015, I think it was 14, was the first time I had been approached about playing in Japan, and ironically it was for the Tigers, which I didn't even realize that or remember that until this year when I signed. So and they reminded me. So anyways, at the time I was playing for the Rangers, and I was about to make my debut there in the big leagues for the first time. And I grew up in Texas, so I really wanted to play big league baseball there in Texas. So, you know, I don't think at that time I had a whole lot of interest, but over the past few years, I had Tommy John surgery in 2017 and missed that whole season, and came back and signed with the Cleveland Indians. And in 2018 was my first year back. And at the end of that year, I had gotten approached again from, I think, the Lions was a team that started calling. And then it kind of ran into the off season where I started getting some phone calls again. So I think at that point, you know, we really started to consider it, kind of like Jerry said, you know, you kind of start getting to a point in your career where, you know, you're just looking for the best opportunities for you and your family. And also for us, you know, we really were considerate of where God wanted us to be. And so it's something we were praying about. We didn't want to make any quick decisions. So in 2018, I ended up getting called back up to the big leagues with the Indians. And I thought I was kind of set to, you know, stick there for a while, and then played the 2019 season. And then, you know, really actually after 2019, I really wasn't sure at that point where my career was going to go. And I ended up signing a contract with the Houston Astros this past offseason. And then a day later, I heard from my agent, and the Tigers had called. And I was pretty set on actually going and playing for the Astros once again, because it was going to be close to home and in Texas and all that stuff. And I had to give an answer in about 24-hour period. And to be honest, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I just started praying about it heavily. And by the end of that night, it got pretty late. And, you know, my agent and I just kind of agreed, because I asked him, I said, can I get back to you tomorrow on it? And he said, sure, you know, but we'll just kind of believe that deal will still be there for you tomorrow if you decide to wait. And so I said, okay. And by that night, though, I felt like I had confirmation that we were supposed to come to Japan, and we decided that. So we came, and man, just from the minute that we made that decision, it seemed like every door for us was wide open. Like it was totally the right decision. And we had no idea, you know, what was going to happen in the world this year with COVID-19 and all the things that have taken place. And we just feel like we couldn't be in a better place than right now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. It's going to be fun. I hear your stories, and it brings back a lot of memories for myself, and certainly a lot of what you mentioned, I recall. Like, you know, it was kind of this process where the conversations had started maybe a couple years previously, but the idea of the timing of how you guys have gotten to where you are and the exact time and place that you're in there in Japan during 2020 and all that we have dealt with so far in this year. It's exciting to me because I know you're exactly where you're meant to be, and I know that it's not going to always be linear, but that there is a specific plan for you guys, and so it'll be cool to watch it unfold. So thanks for sharing that. What a great way to kick it off. I want to transition this into, you know, the Tigers fans. As you guys may be aware, I know that given the pandemic, you haven't had the chance to really have them in your stadiums yet, but I'm sure that you've heard about it or maybe seen some video. But the Tigers fans are some of the best in professional sports, legit, in my opinion. And I'm hoping sometime soon you guys are going to be able to put this current pandemic behind you, behind all of us for that matter, and get to feel just how special they are. Were either of you aware of the history of Koshien and the deep passion of the Tigers fans before you signed? Jerry, you want to kick that off?
Before I signed, no. Once I signed, obviously I started looking into it. Like I said before, I knew of you, and I had seen a few, like I said, highlights and things of you over here in Japan. But obviously, when you just look at a kind of a clip here and there, you're like, oh, there's some fans in the stands. But looking at it more and then being able to stand inside of Koshien and kind of realizing how big and then imagining once again it being packed and the balloons and the loud, just in general. And I kind of had a bit of it in Korea of just the Asian style game where it's never quiet and one team or the other is cheering the entire time, and the cheerleaders and you know what I mean, just the entire game of just mayhem pretty much. So that, and then to step up to another magnitude of having 40 and 50,000 people there. And then on top of that, they say the Tigers fans are even more into it. So yeah, the highlights, I don't even think do it justice. So hopefully we'll get them all packed in there this year.
Great. John?
Yeah, for me, I didn't know the history of Koshien until, similar as, you know, whenever my agent called and said the team that's interested is the Tigers, and the way he described it to me was, you know, they're comparable to like the Boston Red Sox or the Chicago Cubs in the United States. So that was kind of the first, you know, indicator of what we were going to step into. And then, of course, after I signed, you know, I started hearing about the fans, and they were like, you know, talking about how they sell out every night. And I started watching some highlights or some videos of like them shooting off the balloons, I think in the, what is it, the seventh inning or fifth inning?
Seventh inning, yep.
Yeah. And then one of the, Dr. Meister, he is actually the guy who did my Tommy John surgery. I saw him before I left to do a checkup or whatever, and he had said that it was kind of like being in a soccer game, like you know, the way the fans interact and stuff, more than what we'd be used to in baseball. So I guess those were kind of the things that I was told and what my expectations were. And I got to probably experience just a small snapshot of that in spring training. But that's been about it. But it's already been a lot of fun. It's been cool to interact with the fans and, to try to do our best to speak little Japanese words here and there and, see if we can get some laughs and things like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Phil. That's outstanding. Yeah. We'll work on some of that Japanese here at the end of the segment. We'll mess around with some Kansai band. But yeah, man, I tell you, like, just two things really quickly from my perspective. And I know you guys have already touched on this a bit, but I remember going into to the year and wondering, do the fans leave more fatigued or the players? Because from the first pitch to the last pitch, there are trumpets played and the band's going and they are waving flags. And like you said, international soccer, maybe college football in the South, like it's a unique setting and really cool to have a chance to play there. I tell you, I don't know what it was about Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons at Koshien and a beautiful day, especially in September. Jerry, you'll see this in September, the wind, it cools down and the wind tends to push a little bit more towards right center and more to the gaps rather than in from the gap in right center. And so there was just the coolness of the September afternoon and the fans and the bright, crisp, it was just amazing. And then the balloons going in the seventh inning. It was just it's a really special place to be. The fans they're awesome. They'll let you know, by the way, if you're not doing so well. I had a few Matt go homes occasionally, but all in all, it was an amazing relationship between not only myself but the fans. And so I hope for your sake, like I said, that you guys get a chance to experience that here soon. The other thing I was going to mention was Koshien. As you know, that place has probably been around. That place has been around for a while. Babe Ruth actually stepped foot on that field back in the day. And as you walk your hallways there at Koshien, you may have run by that picture of the Babe out there during a goodwill tour that he did. So obviously that stadium has a long history, and one of the big parts of the history of that stadium is the high school tournament, which is where a lot of these, especially starting pitchers in Japan, they become famous. Daisuke Matsuzaka was one of these guys. They become super famous in high school, at a young age. And the history of amateur baseball and how the purity of the game, as they say, and how they hold it in high esteem is pretty special. And so special that you will get kicked out of your stadium in Koshien so the high schoolers can play their game. So it just shows you how much it matters to them. And it's really cool. If you guys ever get a chance to see that high school tournament and get out and watch it, I suggest it. I didn't get out a lot, but I did, and it was really cool to see. So anyway, I love talking about this stuff. It brings back good memories. Really quickly, before we wrap this first one up, actually two more things. I just want to give you a quick sec here to kind of touch on how your past experiences have positioned you to take on the challenges you're facing as a player in the NPB, and whatever you may like to share in regards to that. Jerry, you want to kick that off?
Sure. Yeah. Kind of touching on it before about our stories. John and I both have bounced around our whole careers pretty much. So for me, it's not really a new thing for me to have a new team, a new setting, kind of having to learn a few different things here and there on the way. So it's kind of been my whole career in the States, and then obviously hitting on it again, the time that I've been able to go and be in the KBO, just kind of that. I definitely don't want to use it as a stepping stone because, like I said, my time in the KBO was awesome and something that is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. But it was one of those things that kind of set me up for to be able, just the Asian culture in general. So the ups and downs of the season are going to be the same. Like I said, the last couple of years that I was in Korea, it's different baseball, it's different people, it's a different culture, but at the same point in time, you're still playing the same game that you played for your whole life. So those kind of things are pretty similar to what I've been preparing myself for my whole life. But obviously it's learning the Japanese culture and learning the people and learning your team. That's really important that I've been trying to do as quickly as possible since I've been here.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. John?
Jerry, as far as, from a baseball standpoint, I've played with a lot of different teams. I signed in 2006 was when I was drafted. So I've kind of bounced around. I changed positions. I went from an outfielder to a pitcher. So just had a lot of have experienced a lot of change over my career. So, Japan is, I've never experienced anything quite like Japan. So, it's all new to us. But, like I mentioned earlier, it's something that we felt strongly that, God put on our hearts, and we felt like we were here for a purpose. And so my whole career has been that way, So I think for us, we feel like our hope is in the Lord, and we trust Him to lead us where we go, that He's providing for us along the way. And again, just, leading us with a purpose. So I think from from that perspective, like that's really probably where how we feel prepared to take on whatever challenges we're about to, take on. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so we'll go a little bit more light here. What was the first Japanese meal you had once you arrived there? And do you have a favorite meal yet, Jerry?
Katsudon is my favorite. I think I had it once or twice in Korea, and that's kind of I knew what I was going to expect. And once I got here, I said, yeah, I got to get a hometown made katsudon. So yeah, that's still my favorite.
Do you go tamago katame? In other words, do you have that egg cooked a little bit, or do you let it go all runny?
And it's like a medium. I don't want it like they just crack it in there. I want a little white on top.
From what I understand, that dish is synonymous with winning, right? I think that and everybody can clean that up for me. But so that's a very popular one and a really good. John, what about you, man?
I think we had, the first time I ate here was like a buffet, but the first meal that we sat down together at was, I think we went out for eel, and I don't remember what they call that, but it was really good. We enjoyed it. And then, man, I like all the food. I've really enjoyed a lot of it. I like the curry. I like, the soba. I tend to try to eat stuff, healthy food. So nice. I'm not always eating it just for the taste, I guess, but like some of the guys have been a little surprised that I eat the natto every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm pretty committed. Yeah.
He's a weirdo.
I usually would get it. I usually would get it to about right here, and then that was the end of it for me. I couldn't do it anymore.
He's a weirdo.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's cool. And the soba, man, that's like diving in head first. Like that's not like the beginner noodle there. You're all the way in.
Well, they told me it was buckwheat, and I was like,
healthier.
Well, that's good for you, so that's why I chose it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, live a little, John.
Yeah. I have really enjoyed, obviously getting to spend some time with you. But before we wrap this whole thing up, I was going to do a little Japanese Kansai band lesson 101 here. The word oki ni, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but oki ni is a way to say thank you in Kansai band. So again, man, thank you so much for both of you guys being here. I'm looking forward to the second segment. I hope everybody checks that one out. We're going to dive more into the baseball aspect of what these guys have experienced. But let's send them off with a Ichi-ni-san and oki ni, if you guys are cool with that. Ichi-ni-san. Oki ni. Yeah. Oskari samadesha.